if somebody's coughing or something that way, they want to mute themselves, that's fine. So
Okay,
we'll just go ahead and jump in. I may
right,
jump through a few slides.
Okay, good.
It may not be appropriate for this group, so we'll just see. So here we go. Aging like Jagger here. So our topic for this group was successful aging in the era of drugs and rock and roll. It's just such a different era from the previous generations aging that it's really kind of throwing professionals in the senior living arena off, and now merging some of these generations with the World War II generation and the silent generation, now going into the boomers. So I would imagine we'll go through the time frames and so forth, but you can maybe share which era you're from if you feel like doing that. So we consider the greatest generation, or the World War II generation, those who were born between 1901 to 1926. And with that, let me move myself over here to the side. The characteristics of this group is actually the youngest is actually 96 now, because this original slide presentation was done several years ago. But they're doers, they're strong in their loyalty, their personal morality, their self-reliance was absolutely incredible. Lots and lots of first generation Americans. They rather fix something versus buy something new. They were savers. They paid cash, or they just didn't do it at all.
Does anybody want to raise their hand?
I don't think that is anybody here 96
yes,
and older?
Dorsey.
Yes, this is incredible. I love it. So you were part of that era, the doers and the savers. You were also part of the Industrial Revolution, and a lot of change in our environment. We have the silent generation. These are the folks who were born either during the war, just before it ended, or just a little too young to go to war. And you are called the silent generation. You were born between 1927 and 1945. I see some hands up. All right.
Yeah, here I am.
Two. All right. That sounds great. And so these years, again, are 4 years off, but you initiated civil rights. Feminists were emerging from this time period. You become computer savvy and readers, but we have our participants here who are World War II, and they're here. So I love that you're here. This is actually considered to be the time period of the wealthiest and free spending group of our society, and they kind of pushed the professionals, a little less trusting in doctors, little more educated oftentimes, mostly because we had the Depression and the war with our previous generation. And so we see a lot of travel and experience with this age group too. I had a film, but that's not here. And then we have our boomers. I'm at the very end. Boomers, yay! This is a big group. Huge population too, from 1946 to 1964. And within that generation, we had our Vietnam and post our Cold War, Korea. We had our hippies, we had our yuppies, we have our rock and roll, we have our heavy metal, and all the other gamut of music that came from this. It was the me generation in the 80s. We see some self-righteousness in here. Some latchkey kids came out of this era and had a lot of babysitting through TV, a lot of divorce in this generation. We see a lot of single moms with one child in this generation. So we see our families starting to shrink. Very busy, I'm very busy, I'm very busy, and very leveraged. And I think sometimes having grown into this technology and so forth, how much busier can we get? So this is our population in regards to the births by millions. I'll pull myself over here. Greatest generation, we had about 60 million births in that era. 45, you are the lowest number of births or the population at the time, mostly because I think people were really avoiding families, raising families during the Depression. A lot of turmoil and just kind of really avoiding. It's a slightly smaller time frame too. The boomers, you could see we have 80,000, which is going to be very interesting why you keep hearing about the silver tsunami, because look at how many more people lived in that era versus the previous generation of the silent generation. So we have the silence, just a little breakdown of the ages, and we definitely see spending more money. These might be some of my thoughts that I had for a slide going forward. So let me move forward off of this. So let me talk about shape up your longevity. These are the 7 measures that I put together from research. I have these little things on a flyer here too. Welcome to hand that out to you. But let me talk through all of these. There were several research studies that I went through to come to some of these conclusions. But when we looked at people who were aging the longest in the world, and we could compare what they were all doing or not doing, I was able to come up with a little acronym to describe or to remember some of those things to shape up your longevity. So the first S within Shape Up is our spiritual community. It is faith-based. It doesn't have to be faith-based. We find that people who are part of these organizations 4 times a week or more really get enormous benefit when, at the very least, somebody has a higher power in their life, somebody that's bigger than themselves, somebody who they're able to kind of toss their anxiety or their angst over toward. Have that prayer, that vision of whoever their higher power is to say, just take it away. I'm having a Calgal movement, please take it away. That can be very supportive. We also see 12-step groups and other organizations that keep people connected and able to share some of their worries and so forth is very important. We have the Nun study. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It was a fascinating study with a group of sisters out of Minnesota, and they had to agree to, with the study, they had to agree to an autopsy, annual cognitive and physical examinations. And it was very interesting because at the very end of many of these sisters' lives, they knew that they had dementia. They knew that they had different physical ailments, but in particular with their brains, when they studied their brains at their death, they found that it was so much more significant than imagined, the damage that was done to their brains. But they felt very strongly that because they lived in a communal setting and because they had each other to work with, and to support, and they maintain their purpose and so on and so forth, that the damage to their cognitive functioning was nowhere near what you could tell, or in person, it was nothing like what their brain actually showed. So all of these measures really help to, I mean, these sisters kind of set within all these shape up measures, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Healthy life balance. This is a big kind of section. I put planning in here. If you're planning for your future and so forth, you are protecting and keeping your life healthy and balanced. You're able to reduce that stress and anxiety of not having things that you need to plan. This is also your spiritual well-being, your kind of your soul, as you will. Lots of people may do yoga or Pilates and different things that may help to balance them emotionally. But balancing this area too also helps to minimize disease that we're finding too. Attitude and influencers. So my mom used to say all the time, it's time to weed the friend garden. And what she meant by that was sometimes we have friends that kind of drag us down. they're not just going through a tough spot, they're just really negative people. And so maybe those are people that we want to reconsider as close friends. But that said, our own attitude and how we treat others and the people that we have around us will also influence our life. Physical activity, and this is kind of pretty simple. We know that if we have some physical activity in our life, we maintain our ambulation, but it also helps to reduce our heart risks and stroke risks and dementia. And the wonderful thing is it also helps to increase our dopamine too. Our eating habits, we truly are what we eat. And you see lots of different diets coming forward right now. I think you need to decide if that's something that works for you or not. But we do know that putting processed foods and overeating things with sugar and maybe alcohol can be disruptive to our lives. So I think in the end too, what are the things that potentially you may be able to, on a very small level, be interested in changing, just to make a little tiny change for yourself too? A united family. This helps to decrease depression. We know that we have, especially during COVID, we had people who were at least being able to connect with family members or friends. Don't think of a united family as just a blood relative, but who are the people who are very close to you, who stand up for you, who connect with you routinely, and make sure that if you need something, that they're there for you, and that you're there for them too. It's not just to call and complain about something or to say this isn't happening, or it's great to ask for help. I want people to ask for help. But is there something that you're able to offer in return, as far as your love and support and your hugs and your acknowledgement of them and what they do well too? And purpose. Purpose is so important. I think it's great that you're here today. I hope this is part of something you wanted to initiate or be part of, or learn more about successful aging. And I think when we wake up in the morning and we have something that excites us, it creates our purpose, and it makes our days special when we have purpose to our day. So threw in some things with Mick Jagger here. Shape up your longevity. I don't want to be singing Satisfaction when I'm 45. This is when he started singing when he was younger, and then he was quoted this at 38. So let's look a little bit at the aging generations. The greatest generation, again, I don't know, let's see. They are the doers, and the youngest is 96. And we have our silents and our boomers. And our unique features also repeated, our birth by era. So I must have put these together before in a different strategy. This is actually a picture of Mick Jagger when he was a little boy, and he says, don't you think sometimes it's wise not to grow up? And I think sometimes that childness in us kind of helps us to stay young and energized as well. I love this quote because 2013, there was a critic who said, is Mick Jagger too old to rock? I mean, come on, this guy is, how old is he going to be and still running around on the stage? Well, he's almost 80. So what is it like to age like Jagger? We could talk about his spirituality, and he was born a Protestant. He became Sir Mick, and he converted to Catholicism when he married his first wife, Bianca. Then later on, he was married in a different type of ceremony with his wife, Jerry Hall. And he also dabbled in Buddhism. He said that he meditates every day, but he's ambivalent about religion itself. And he is in awe of the universe, and just the belief that that not really a belief in God. He doesn't really have a belief in God, but he does have this spirituality, something that's bigger than himself. It's a belief in something. I don't have belief in the Holy Book, which is kind of interesting. So that is his impression himself about spirituality. He definitely lived that life in a fast lane. We know that. He was definitely part of that sex, drugs, and rock and roll era. And when he was on the now when they're on the road, I think he stopped using drugs. From some of the interviews I saw in the early 90s, I believe he stopped doing drugs. And so he really changed his whole demeanor around on his health and so forth. They have an entourage that come with them when they tour naturally, and that includes over 200 people of varying responsibilities. And oh yeah, I do have there that he said goodbye to drugs in the 90s. He had a really special relationship with his father. His dad was over 93 when he passed away, and his dad was a PE coach. And so suffice to say, he is a very physically active person himself, and it was probably an exposure that he had to his father. And I love this quote by Tina Turner, though. She said that she used to laugh watching him in the back on the stages, and just he could not dance. And if you look at him, I don't know, to me, he has a little awkwardness about the way he does dance, but he's out there and he's moving. But she was the one who really kind of poked him a bit to really get out there and move and have those, if you're going to be like James Brown or you're going to be famous, you need to actually move around and enhance your look by not just standing on that stage. His physical activity is also very interesting. They say that he trains 5 to 6 days a week. That's with stamina and balance. That's something that I think is very, very important, especially if you are a great trick. If test yourself when you get out of a chair, maybe not a deep chair, but a regular chair, like your dining room chair, try to step up out of your chair without holding on to the side arms. See if you can push yourself off without using anything and sit back down again, so that you can test your strength. If you need to push yourself up, that's great. But just think in your mind, you might want to look at some extra strength training or physical therapy that's covered under your insurance to manage that strength for yourself. Jagger runs 8 miles a day. He also does up to 12 miles a day on that stage when he's in concert, running back and forth on that stage. He eats a particular diet. He's a very slim guy, as you can tell. He's 5'10", 160 pounds, and it's a pretty basic diet with some vitamins and so forth too. Fish, pasta, avocado. His United family is a little different. He has his band family, but he has his rock and roll style life still, regardless with his family. He's very close to his children. He may not be the best husband in the world, but he became a father again at 73 in December of 2016. That happens to be my birthday, so not the 2016 part, but he has a little one, so he feels that his children are very important. He likes to stay very connected and close with them and their communication and supporting and guiding them. So purpose, anything worth doing is worth overdoing.
Good line.
So we have this sex, drugs and rock and roll kind of era, and we may have some different behaviors and some different crossovers of how we might dress, how we might behave sexually, how we might spend our day, the music that we listen to. Dorsey, I'm sure your favorite music may be a little different than Dave's or Joy's or Sue's. So maybe you can share a little bit about some of the things that are unique to you for a second. And we'll see if you fit in those categories or you're outside of the categories. How's that? I'll go ahead and stop sharing really quick, and then maybe we can share a little bit about that.
Hey, we've got a few people.
Did you hear that, Dorsey?
Yeah.
Mary was asking you a question.
Say it again.
So we all have stereotypical music that we're interested in, depending on the era that we grew up in. do you have a favorite band, musician, singer? And then it'd be fun to maybe all share a little bit about who our favorite musicians are.
I just remember that we used to go dancing at the Palladium, and I forget the Tommy Dorsey and Jimmy Dorsey band.
My
So
dad went there too. My dad was actually both of my parents are silent generation. And my dad had his different tuxedos, cummerbunds and ties, and he used to love to go in and see. It was amazing that they had these small venues on Broadway in LA that you could go and see, and all these different jazz venues as well in LA, and experience such fantastic music with such amazing talent up close instead of these giant concerts that came around about the time the Beatles came out. Anybody else want to share some of their favorite music? And
Well, the Beatles were the first albums I bought. I was becoming a teenager just when they were becoming popular, and I think I knew all their songs by heart for a while because I played them so often.
that's great. And you know, Katie's joint is with us too. And Katie is actually, I don't think you're part of the boomers, Katie. I think you're younger. What generation are you with?
I don't know, but
Is it the
I
X
always
or the Y?
like the music of a different generation. I love the Eagles and a lot of early, yeah, that kind of
Early rock.
yeah, early rock. Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? Anybody else from the silent generation? Is anybody from the silent generation here? I think I saw.
I too
Right.
remember dancing at the Palladium a few times back then. That was a little, I was a little young then, but Dorsey, you were a little bit ahead of me, I think. Anyway, that was great. But the music is of that period, and today's music and the music for the last 20 or 30 years is really not interested me.
That's great.
I'm afraid my husband and I are devoted to classical music and opera. Sorry.
Timeless.
Very interesting. Anybody else want to share their favorite music? Ooh,
Can't beat it. Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan. They have a Bob Dylan museum that just came
I
out.
know. I have to, a village outing.
There you go. There you go.
I don't know if that would go.
Anybody else want to share? Jeff, Lucille?
I love the Beatles too, and I knew a lot of their songs. And then there was a big kind of a gap after that. And then it became almost purely classical.
Interesting.
Opera and symphony music, and a lot of opera lately.
Nice. And Lucinda. Oh, you're muted.
It's hard to decide between the Beach Boys and the Beatles because they both are just absolutely phenomenal bands, and had such a different sound. But yeah, enjoyed them all, and everybody else in that generation. All the music of the 60s and even on into the 70s was just great music.
Yeah, I can remember, and whether it's in my era or not, I can remember different songs being played, and how many of you have a very vivid memory of the music being played in the background, along with a memory that you had with a loved one, a friend, maybe it was somebody that you didn't even know. Does anybody remember anything like that, where the music was so strong in their memory that every time they think of the song, they think of that memory?
For some reason, I don't have a song, synced to a memory. I don't know why. Occasionally I'll hear a song, an old song on the oldies stations, and it'll bring back some memories of that era, but not a specific memory related to me. I think some people are more musically oriented than others.
That's true. That's true.
Absolutely.
I can remember thinking of certain songs playing on the beach. We would bring a radio, probably a boombox for my era. And I can remember specific songs from that. And when I hear those specific songs, I remember being with friends or being with family or driving around, going to a restaurant with those particular songs playing. And it's really wonderful, wonderful memories. So I hope this will kind of charge your mind with some of the things after we get off. You'll think, I do remember. You'll hear a song and you'll say, I do remember that. So the other reason for bringing up Aging Like Jagger and the differences amongst us is we still have some we have some things about us that are the same. We have things that are very unique to our era. Let's talk about maybe some of the things. I'll just take some really basic area. What are the things that you do to be physically active?
What do you do to be physically active?
Yes, what are the things you do to be physically active?
Walk every day, a long way. My physical therapist says it's even better than exercising. I said, I can't get in my exercise and my walking sometimes. She said, go for the walking, it's best. So that's what I do now. I used to dance all the time, but now I walk with my walker.
And oh, with your walker, that's great. So you're also being very preventative too. That's fantastic.
My husband and I do water aerobics at the Rose Bowl 4 times a week. Plus we walk every day, either at the Huntington Gardens or the Arboretum.
Oh, really nice and great environment. Lots of beauty around you then too.
Oh, it's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It's really kept us going, particularly during these days of the virus. It's wonderful.
I try to play tennis twice a week. And then other days I exercise, and now we have a ping pong affinity group here at the Pasadena Village as well. That's a little bit of exercise.
Nice. Were you always a tennis player, Dave?
Yeah, that's just it. I don't dare quit now or I'm through.
Oh, I envy you. I envy you. I played until I was 77, and then my rotator cuff gave way and I couldn't play anymore. But I'll have to try some of the ping pong up at the village.
That's always something that's very interesting and sometimes a challenge for me to kind of create a solution around some of the things that you really love and enjoy doing but are not able to do. So what can we do to alter some of those things that you really enjoyed in a different way so that you're still getting, I don't know, is there a video game that you could play where you're not really hurting yourself, or just being creative in the way that we think how we redo exercise because our bodies are changing and failing us sometimes. But it sounds like you all are doing a fantastic job at taking care of yourself. Anybody else want to share anything about their exercise or their physical activity?
Well, I might add that over the years of playing tennis, I've seen so many fellows particularly drop out because they've hurt their arm or their knee or something. And about 10 years ago, I screwed up my shoulder and I could no longer serve overhand. So I resorted to underhand serving. And that was just fine for several years until recently I've discovered that the shoulder's okay again.
Oh,
Interesting,
wow.
but you did modify what you
Yeah,
were doing.
well, the
so
point
you
is
could
I-
continue to play, which is important. That's great.
Yes, I modified instead of quitting.
Great. That's great. Anybody else want to share something like that, especially modifications you might have made for yourself?
Well, the village has a weekly neighborhood walking group that goes every Friday morning, chooses different neighborhoods, and they walk anywhere between 2 and 3 miles usually.
They
And
walk
then
too
there's
early.
also a hiking club that some of us participate in where we go up in the mountains and do a 3 to 5 mile hike, depending on the day.
Great. Yes, Lucinda.
I like to garden, but I can't get down on my knees to do weeding. I mean, I can get down on my knees, but I can't get back up. I have to have something that really helps me get back up. So I bend at the waist and do what I want to do, just bending at the waist.
That's great. And I love how Dorsey has her walker with her, some kind of an assistant, an ambulation assistance there. So even having something like that to your side so that you can pull yourself up is great. Fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, when I go out to do gardening, I have my walker right there, and my physical therapist says, don't bend over. And but sometimes I do if somebody's with me.
Nice.
Pulling weeds is fun, isn't it, Lucinda?
Yeah, yeah.
Gets a lot of aggression out, I found personally. Helps with my stress level. Who else would like to share about what they do physically?
It's called dirt therapy.
Yes. Is that, let's see, who is that saying that?
Oh, is Lucinda froze? You froze, Lucinda.
Oh, okay. She froze, but if we could hear her, that's great. No, it is. It's wonderful. How about, oh yes, Sue.
Well, I swim at the Rose Bowl 4 times a week. I see Joy there sometimes.
You are amazing people. I am getting inspiration from you. I've been waiting.
I don't think you have to be that good. I'm just a plain old swimmer, but I just go back and forth real slow.
It's just as much about it's not so much about the finding super motivation as much as creating the habits that you have.
Oh yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anyone else with a share? Let's talk a little bit about eating habits. Do any of you have special foods that you avoid or that you are attracted to? Share a little bit about some of the things you do.
I've changed my eating habits dramatically. We only use a salad dish for every meal. We never use anything larger. We've cut out bread, potatoes, all that stuff. We focus now on green vegetables, fruit, lots of salmon, and then we do have cheese, egg, and yogurt, which is
Nice.
I'm not quite sure how good that is, but you guys do it. But anyway, we've cut out most of our ice cream and desserts. I used to bake all sorts of stuff. I used to make lemon bars and carrot cakes. Now we have Trader Joe's one little bonbon, 60 calories, ice cream with chocolate around it. So we've dramatically improved, but it hasn't taken off the pounds, I'm afraid, though.
Sure. Who else?
I could just say ditto to what Joy said. That's perfect, Joy. Vegetables and fruits and not carrot cake anymore. And
blueberries, strawberries, little bananas.
How are you staying hydrated, everyone? Do you find a certain amount of water that you're drinking, or is there something that you do in routine for that? Are you eating certain? Look at you, you guys go great. Is there a certain amount of hydrating foods that you put into your diet too?
Well, I'm terrible at hydrating. I don't get thirsty, and I've been told I need to force myself to drink.
That's a very interesting fact, actually, Wayne, because as we do age, that whole ability for our brain to say, you're thirsty, you need to go take a drink, it kind of disengages. It slows down on us. So you're not alone. It's something that's pretty normal. So sometimes what I do with some of my clients is we get the bottles of water and we put a date on the case. So if their plan is to drink 1, then we'll put the date on there. If they want to drink up to 4 or 5 or whatever they want to drink, we put the date on there so they know to pull that out and replenish if they want it cold. But they know that, oh, I've only gotten through a couple bottles today. Or you can have these bottles, like everybody show your bottle that has I love it. You have to go through X number of bottles. So sometimes that can be a helpful routine to think about how to manage your hydration levels too. And then foods like berries and cucumbers and melons and a variety of different, I think squashes are really high in hydration. You can do a Google search on that. There's some foods that, especially eaten raw, can really add to the support of your hydration. So just another little thing to think of. Anybody else want to share some of the changes they've made over the years, or the things that they really enjoy and would like to share about their eating habits?
Oh,
When my kids were younger, my kids are all in their early 30s right now, but when they were younger, they came home and I fed my kids McDonald's and different things that way. We had lots of home meals, home cooked meals as well. But I remember one of my children coming home after getting braces, and he said, I'm not going to have sodas anymore, Mom, because the dentist said it's going to be bad for my teeth. And so I thought, well, if he says that it's bad for his teeth and it's bad for the braces, then why don't we just stop getting sodas? And so the only time we bought sodas was for a party, and then we kind of stopped doing that even. And then another son came home and he said, I would like to start weightlifting, so I want to put more protein in my body. And he taught me a lot about nutrition, actually. And I have a daughter who at the age of 28, after having 2 children, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which is not an easy, it's not a definitive test when you are tested for that. But she found, well, first of all, she was very upset. The doctor came in, horrible bedside manner, said, yep, you have such and such, and here's your medication. You're going to be taking it a lifetime, so it's going to really destroy your liver, and your eyes will need to be checked routinely because you may go blind. And she thought, I'm a young mom and I'm 28 years old, and you're giving me a diagnosis without any resources. You're just telling me to take this medication. She would not fill the prescription. This is just her personal decision, but she decided not to fill the prescription. She went to do more research and talk with other individuals, and she's completely changed her diet to eliminate as much processed food and sugar as she can. And the inflammation has changed her body to the point where she does not have the joint pain or the miserable, kind of pain that she had prior. And if she stays within a certain diet, she actually lives very comfortably and does not take the medication. So she also gets her eyes checked too. But that is something that I'm very happy that she kind of worked through on her own. But I think with each little process with my children, I've learned a lot. I learn a lot from my clients too. I grew up Catholic, so every year we kind of give things up during Lent. And so sometimes I decide, okay, I'm going to give up caffeine, and it's stuck. I'm going to give up dairy, and it's stuck. So I've been able to make small changes for myself just by doing little things that way. And you might just find something yourself that will help kind of support a change with just something very small, but it'll have a very nice result for you.
So
Any questions?
do you think dairy is bad for us?
I personally was tested for dairy and have a negative kind of genome for cow's milk or cow's dairy. So that is, and I felt so much better when I stopped eating dairy. I'm not 100% strict with myself. I kind of eliminated the cheeses first, and I would always have some cream with my coffee. And then when I stopped drinking coffee, then that didn't become an issue either. You can be tested for it. I think it's completely individual and something that you can discuss with your physician or eliminate for a very short period of time and see how you feel. And if you feel better, it may be something that you do want to eliminate.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are some physicians who will say certain dairy, more of the hard cheeses, are have more benefit than the softer cheeses, which I love the softer cheeses, but they don't love me. So anything else about food?
Well, I refuse to give up desserts, so I'm going to stick to it. I just bought an apple pie today.
But when you do have less refined sugar, it will benefit you. So I have changed my sugar bowl from having regular sugar to having monk fruit, which tastes and looks just like regular sugar. If I bake with that. If I saute some berries to make like a little drizzle over something, I will use that monk fruit. And there are other substitutes that you can use, such as dark molasses and other things that can help to push away some of those refined sugars and maybe bump up your health a little bit, or lower your inflammation.
I have figured out how to make crustless apple pie. I take apples, cut them up in little sections, and then put a little cinnamon on them and a tiny bit of water in the bottom of the jar and bake them for a half hour. And they taste just like the apples in apple pie, but I have no flour, no sugar, nothing but real apples and cinnamon, and they are wonderful.
And apples have a lot of natural sugar too.
I know. Oh,
Yeah, I learned early on, I was a kind of a health food freak in college, and I made my own applesauce and baked my own bread and all that other stuff. And I discovered that the applesauce that you make just by pureeing the apples without any added sugar tastes just as sweet
exactly
as the regular sugar added apples. So I couldn't understand why they were adding sugar to it.
I know, it's wonderful.
So I only buy the sugarless applesauce at the store.
Another way to get sweetness into your oatmeal is dates. I put dates in my oatmeal, as well as seeds and nuts.
That is actually my dessert. And I feel like it keeps me pretty regular too. Like, if you don't mind me sharing. 3 dates a day. Anyone else that wants to share?
I think we should have a village, some kind of a presentation where we each compare our a shopping cart of groceries that we bought at the store, just to and have people talk about why they bought those items.
It's actually really fast. I'm learning from everybody here too. I really always do. And thank you for sharing, because I think that is it really is inspirational, and it gives you great ideas too. Oh, I had never thought about that. So thank you, everyone. Let's talk a little bit about purpose. We're getting close to wrapping up the hour. What kinds of things do you do to make your day purposeful? What makes you juiced up to get ready and head out the door or get out of bed in the morning?
Well, I find that walking through the Huntington Gardens and looking at the birds and looking at the different plants is just absolutely wonderful. And I love the Arboretum because I'm crazy about the peacocks there too. So I find walking in nature is just fabulous. And also we go to Garfield Park, and I don't have a doggie, but all the dogs at Garfield Park, there are like 10 dogs there playing, chasing each other, catching frisbees. It is the most fun place to watch human nature have fun, and animals and doggies too.
That's fantastic. So people watching, nature watching has been your
it's just wonderful. And
your purpose.
Watching the doggies play, it's just fabulous.
Fantastic.
Well, music also. Turn on music. Anytime I find that I'm a little bored with life, I turn on my favorite Mozart or Beethoven.
The interesting thing about music, in particular when we have lyrics along with the instrumental, it works both sides of our brain. So sometimes we might have those recollections, or things might come back to us sometimes when we are listening to the music that we love. Yeah.
What's interesting is that there have been studies about Alzheimer's, and you use your ability for cognition and to make judgments and so forth. People who are totally out of it, they can sit down and play the piano. Music is deep within and is the last to go.
Mm-hmm. It's true. My grandmother was a great example of that. She was 99. She had been an organist and a pianist for years and years, and a music teacher. And she up until the very end where she just didn't feel comfortable getting up to sit at the piano. She played beautifully her entire life, and she didn't know what her address was anymore, or that her son's name was Tom. Yeah,
Wow,
it was
interesting.
pretty amazing.
And that's why you can get a group of seniors in a nursing home to sing familiar songs, even
Yes.
though their cognition is very impaired.
Which is
Because
also
they
interesting.
remember the words to the songs.
It's interesting because the songs that Katie may have learned in school were not the songs that Dorsey learned or that I learned. So when you get people in a group, it'll be important to have those songs that are very consistent to an era, typically in a nursing home, so that we do bring that bandwidth back, that rubber band memory of ours. But it does have to be something that's familiar. Yeah, but I see people sing "Oh Susanna" and different songs, or maybe something in regards to gosh, thinking
Church
not the Pledge
hymns
of
is a
Allegiance, but what's
common one.
our anthem?
Well, the thing about singing and learning a new language and learning to play an instrument, and my daughter teaches a ukulele online,
Oh,
and mostly, and they're all senior adults. And so she's wanting to do one for the village, and we haven't quite got that to work yet.
that's good.
It's, like you said, getting together with others and singing, and something as simple as a ukulele we can do that even at our older age.
It kind of makes us smile inside, right? When we can do these things and
Yeah.
have these experiences that are positive. And so obviously that attitude and influencers piece of Shape Up too is so important, because when we have those positive experiences and exchanges with others, I don't know about you, but when I was able to get together with my family for Mother's Day this last year, it was such a joy. It was such a joy to see the kids interacting and talking with one another, just to even sit and watch them. But just the happiness, and watching my mom with my granddaughter, and just you can't take those little moments away. They're just precious. So
Well, we go to church mass every Sunday, and we love singing the songs, the hymns at mass. It really is wonderful.
yeah, and there are probably some that you've sang your whole life there too, which
Oh.
just come right back. So
Right.
that's also really neat. Anybody else want to share something in regards to their purpose or something that's very positive in their life?
Well, I do genealogy, which I find interesting, and
Nice.
I go to cemeteries to take pictures through Find a Grave, which I discovered a couple of years ago. They were asking for volunteers because they depend on volunteers to go and take the pictures that people request. And I started doing that locally and found it really interesting, especially when the pandemic hit, because I could continue to do that without wearing a mask or anything. I just go to the cemetery and do a lot of walking and searching, and then uploading the photographs, and briefly corresponding with the people that thank me for taking them. So it's pretty interesting.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I've heard of people doing that. A lot of people on the East Coast, because we have, people further back on that side out there. But what a neat experience, and coupled with so many other great interests too, to be out in nature and so forth.
You discover a lot of historical things about people. When you look them up, you find out that they did something significant during the war, or they died during the war. A lot of sad stories that are now completely forgotten. And it's really interesting.
Is there a most common cemetery that you find yourself searching?
I go mostly to Forest Lawn, Glendale. I go to some of the local smaller ones like Mountain View and so
That's an
forth.
older
But
one.
other people go to those more often, and there's way more graves at Forest Lawn, so there's more requests. And I know it well enough now, so I can get around it without having to look at the map all the time.
Nice. Anybody want to share one last thought or something special from the Shape Up list?
So-
Let's see, here we go. Maybe.
I have a cat, a COVID cat.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my sister got a dog. Same thing. It's been really important. Stella has been very important.
Very important.
So Wayne, I can share this document, the shape up document. I also have a little booklet of some different things as far as planning, because we want you to be in control and empowered with your aging process. And we plan lots of things. We plan our vacations and our retirements and our weddings and all kinds of things. We need to plan the best life ever. And I also have something else called the perk. It's a daily kind of happenings of things, little puns and silly events that happened many years ago, mostly little facts and history. And then the flip side has a word search related to that special day. I'm not sure what day today is. I think a couple, like last week was National Donut Day or something that way. So there's always something silly and kind of fun to kind of read some little facts on. It's kind of fun just to talk to somebody else about as well, and have something to talk about, and maybe create some new friendships that way.
Do you want to share those? Can you share those through sending them through the email?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and
Okay,
send all of those as an
send them to
attachment to
me.
you.
We can go ahead and send them out to everybody that attended today.
Sure. Yeah,
Good.
I'd be happy to share.
Thank you. That'd be
Any
good.
last questions or comments or?
Dick, you've been quiet.
Yeah, I was late getting here. I had some technical problems with Zoom and with my brain. So,
But you succeeded in surmounting them. So you're a classic example of successful aging.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you all gave me some very fantastic, wonderful examples of successful aging, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And
I think a key secret to successful aging is persistence.
yeah,
Keep waking up every day.
yeah.
Mary, you were talking about diet. Did you talk at all? I missed a little bit about alcohol. I had a friend who told me, "Oh, Katie, when you turn 40, you won't be able to drink white wine anymore." I thought that was a really weird thing, like something about my metabolism, or
It might be hers. It might be her metabolism. For me, white wine, I might have a little bit, but it seems to have a higher sugar content that really bothers me. And some researchers are saying that you shouldn't drink at all. Some are saying that if you limit it within a certain amount of drinks, we process things different as we get older. And then we have medications potentially that we're taking that may have poor interactions with alcohol. I think it's very personal. I think you kind of know when it's more than 1 or 2 glasses a day. That might be an issue, but it's very dehydrating. Alcohol can be very dehydrating to our bodies. So if you are drinking, it's important to drink your water alongside of it. I have a gentleman who is he is an alcoholic, and he doesn't think he is, but the caregiver's been really good about putting that glass of water in front of him. And when he drinks his glass of water, he can have his glass of wine. And that's helped him from being, we've had to call up paramedics a few times just because he has some issues, or his body isn't regular. So it helps to regulate him much more if he's drinking to hydrate him too. So
Katie, the rest of that is that you have to stop drinking white because you have to switch to red when you're finished.
One thing you didn't mention is pets.
pets are fantastic. So those might be your united family. That might also be your attitude and influencer, your positive friend, your furry friend that comes to help. People love plants in their homes. Sometimes that's just something to nurture. They obviously don't talk back, but plants can be a very wholesome, supportive thing, providing more oxygen in your environment and giving you a little something to do in regards to watering and tending to the leaves.
Speaking of pets.
Yeah, here it is.
The mail lady must be coming.
Main event.
Oh,
I will
Lord.
definitely I'll get our Visionary Aging booklet to you. I will get our Shape Up form to you. And I will get the perk out to you. You know what? Well, talk amongst yourself and I'll find out what day it is today on the perk.
Yeah, the dogs get worked up when the mail lady comes.
That's
Somebody
the
to bark.
advantage of cats is they don't,
Intruder, intruder.
cats don't talk a lot.
One time the mail lady saw the Pekingese and she goes, "Oh my goodness, is that what's been barking at me?"
Today is International Museum Day.
Oh,
It goes in and out of being able to be seen, and then we also have the word search on the back too. Katie, you've been on my live stream. We do a live stream every Friday morning. We try to go on as close to 8 as possible. Sometimes that something happens and we're a little delayed, but we always have a special speaker, like someone like Katie. And we almost always have a fitness and nutrition expert on too who does a segment. So if you have
They're
questions,
fantastic.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
have
the fitness and
questions-
nutrition. I've learned something every time. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I
Neat.
like listening to it.
So if you have questions or you want to watch on Facebook, you can, I'm sure Katie would take your questions and Melinda will answer them for you. Or you can watch us live.
I have just one thing I want to add before we finish. For the people in my era, you know, the 90s plus, you can see it over here, or maybe you can't. Jigsaw puzzles. They are very good. Like in the, sometimes when I need to get centered, I just go and sit down and do a few puzzles and it clears my mind. And I love doing it. And I do beautiful pictures. I always choose beautiful pictures to work on. So if you haven't gotten into jigsaw puzzles yet, I suggest it when you get past the 90s.
That was great.
you have to share your old ones.
Yeah, you could circulate them and start a little group for a puzzle sharing group.
I tried that once at the village and it never went anywhere. I thought it would be great if we could bring puzzles and exchange, but we never got it going.
Oh, interesting.
I think we should have one puzzle going at the village at all times and people could just go over and add a piece or two when they visit the office and see how long it takes to finish a puzzle.
Good
We
idea.
had one going during the pandemic. My kids did it, so it's good for all ages. But yeah, we'll start another one. That'd be fun.
That's great. Well, Wayne,
Okay,
thank
well,
you so much.
I guess we're all done. This is our presentation. And thank you all for coming and thank Mary for sharing
Thank you. Thank
some of
you.
her expertise with us.
Well, and thank you for sharing your insights and the things that you're doing because they're important, and keep doing them.
Well, if you want more tips, you can always come back.
There you go. We'll do the grocery cart.
Good.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
everybody.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Being with you.
Wayne, will you stop the recording?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it is.
Do I have it? Oh, here.